podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join me today for this week's big match preview. Yes, unfortunately, Chris has had the audacity to head off for an Easter holiday, so you're stuck with me for this week's preview pod. So apologies to those who were hoping for a little more win in their lives. Anyways, this weekend we head south to take on Tony Mowbray's West Brom Albion, and it's a game I'm really looking forward to. So it'll be a good test for the lads, and we're going to get into it today. First off, joining me, as always, is Johnny Hawley. Hello, mate.
All right, Gav, how are you doing?
Very good, mate, very good. And also, our special guest today is someone making his first appearance on the pod, a broadcast journalist and author who is, in his long career, has worked for the BBC, TalkSport, and not only currently hosts a podcast for the Byline Times, but is also the host of The Liquidator, a West Bromwich Albion podcast. It's none other than Adrian Goldberg. Hello, mate. How's it going?
Nice to meet you, Gav. Nice to meet you, Johnny. I also do a podcast called Where's the Money Gone, which is my forthcoming book. And my co-host is somebody who's well known to Sunderland fans, the one and only Charlie Methven.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that.
You're going to move swiftly on.
Now, I'll be. To be fair, I listen to your podcast, Adrian. I enjoy it. It's very interesting. You know, you get to see that other side of the game with Where's the Money Gone. So
yeah.
Well, I'm not here to hate on it. Don't worry.
No. Well, if you listen to Charlie, he isn't necessarily kind of aggrieved about it, but I think he makes the point that what you see on a documentary, which is how I first came to know him on the Sunderland Till We Die television program, isn't always how things really are. You know, we all know, I think, that what you see on telly, even if it's supposedly reality, it's a little bit manufactured. A lot of work is done on the edit. On the other hand, you guys had the experience of having him as a director of your football club. I haven't. So, you know, it's a different perspectives.
Yeah, that's gone a little bit quiet since he left Charlton, hasn't it? So we're waiting for the next episode to drop of that one.
Well, I tell you what, yeah, he's got a new job in Jamaica. And he's going to be involved in the team that might play in the World Club Championship. Not guaranteed yet. A club called Mount Pleasant in Jamaica, and they've got backing from a big US investment fund. So, yeah, it's interesting. That whole thing of what's happening at that level of FIFA, World Club Championship and so on, I think is really interesting. And probably in the immediate future, he's not going to trouble either West Bromwich Albion or Sunderland. But I think when you look at how the Champions League and Europa League and so on have grown in size this season, you look at the growth, massive growth of the World Club Championship, I think that there are pressures going to be bearing down on our clubs over the years to come. And obviously we've both clubs with great tradition, great loyal fan bases. But, you know, I think there are people at the top of football, people financing football, who really don't give a flying about your club or mine. Sadly.
No. Yes, we'll leave the Charlie Methven chat there then.
I'm not saying Charlie's one of those people. I think Charlie cares about it, but I think just you look at FIFA, you look at UEFA, you look at the big money clubs. I think, you know.
Yes, it's a difficult world we're trying to make our way in, isn't it? Sunderland and West Bromwich Albion, and we meet this weekend at the Hawthorns. It's a 12:30 kickoff, which I hate. I mean, that's awful for Sunderland fans for one. It's a long trip as it is. Never mind having to get there for 12:30 in the afternoon. And I was taking a little look at how you're doing. Obviously, you're in the playoffs with us at the minute. Played 39 games, won 13, drawn 18, lost 8. So you don't lose many. Scored 48, conceded 35, and only lost twice at home to Borough and Blackburn. So, I mean, does that tell the full story? Because I've just listened to your podcast that you did at the weekend, and it doesn't sound like all is rosy in the garden at the minute.
Absolutely not, no. I mean, a lot of those draws came under Carlos Corberán, and your listeners might know that Carlos Corberán left us on Christmas Eve. Thanks, Carlos. Carlos Corberán had done a great job. He took over a squad that was managed by somebody else who you'll know, Steve Bruce, and Bruce had done his, his record says he's a good manager, doesn't he? He's got 4 promotions on his CV. He was dreadful for us. It was a difficult situation, though. We were kind of losing the parachute money, or money was running out. We had an owner who had no idea really how to run an English football club, a guy called Gu Chanlai in China. And so when Corberan came in, after the end of the results on the first weekend when he took over, we were actually bottom of the championship. Corberan then took us to, an amazing run that season after he took over, nearly made the playoffs. Then last season, he took us to the playoffs, and the odds were that this season he probably would have kept us in the top 6 again. But at the end of 2 years, and he went off with our good wishes to Valencia, it had become a bit stale, a lot of draws, a lot of risk-free football. So we welcomed Tony Mowbray back. Everybody says what a lovely guy he is. And you'll know that from his time at Sunderland, truly a genuine bloke and a really nice football man. And because he had some of his greatest success with us back in 2008, 1 year he got us to Wembley in the playoffs and we lost, but we got to an FA Cup semi-final. Then the next year he got us promoted. And in that season, we scored over 100 goals in all competitions. So he was welcomed back to the Hawthorns. But it hasn't really worked out. And although we've got creditable draws with Leeds and with Burnley since he's been there, after the last home game against Hull, where we drew 1-1 and conceded a late equaliser, there's just a few grumblings that this isn't feeling too good. And then at the weekend, we lost to Norwich 1-0 with a goal at 90+2. We were comfortably the better side, but really didn't represent much of a goal threat. So we're still in the top 6, but there is definitely a feeling of things just don't feel quite right at the moment. So I don't want to give you too much hope, guys, but you come to a Hawthorns, which is been a bit of a bubbling cauldron of discontent at times this season, just because the football hasn't been great. The league table, I wouldn't say it flatters us, but that record that you read out makes it perhaps look that we're slightly better than we are. But we should be up there, but it's just not firing at the moment.
Jonny, are you a little bit surprised to hear that about Tony Mowbray? Because he obviously did such a great job with us, but it did tail off at the end. But the big thing he had over all else was the style of play, wasn't it? Like the football at times under Tony Mowbray was outstanding. And I was, again, you shouldn't place too much into social media and all that. But I was just reading a big, long Facebook thread about Tony Mowbray from after the game. And one of the big things which stood out to me was the West Brom fans criticising the style of football, saying it's actually worse than it was under Corberan, which, I'll let Adrian come in on that in a minute, but Jonny, does that surprise you at all?
Yeah, it did take us by surprise because, like you say, I remember when Tony Mowbray came in for us, and particularly that first season where we, snuck into the playoffs by the skin of our teeth on the final day. Our big thing was being brilliant going forward. We were quite organised defensively, but it was very free, and that's probably helped by having good players. Obviously, you stick Amad Diallo in a championship team, then, they're not going to struggle to create too many chances. But, it always seemed like Mowbray's big priority was to get the players playing and expressing themselves. You think of some of the goals we scored, particularly that team goal away at Reading that I think Jack Clark finished off in the end, which still does the rounds on social media every international break, it feels like. And to me, that's a Tony Mowbray team. So, to hear the criticism essentially being that, it's still been quite boring almost and not really doing much going forward, that is a surprise. And I was wondering whether, is it injuries? Is it tactical decisions? Is it substitutions? Like, I wonder what you could nail it down to be, because it doesn't feel like a Tony Mowbray style.
No, well, it's a bit of a conundrum, because I think he's trying to encourage the players to express themselves. I think there is clearly a desire for us to be much more on the front foot. But in terms of delivery, in terms of execution, that isn't happening at the moment. Now, pre-Mowbray, we had the top scorer in the division at the time, another player who you'll know, Josh Madger. Madger, unfortunately, sustained quite a bad injury, and if he's fit this season again, it won't be until the playoffs, I don't think. We've also had a very bad injury for Daryl DK, who will almost certainly be on the bench. But we signed a player who we thought would make all the difference in the January window, only on loan from Southampton, Adam Armstrong. And he scored on his debut. So you'd think if there'd been any lingering unhappiness on his part, any lack of confidence, because he's had a tough season at Southampton, that put him right back in the mood, you would have thought. He scored another goal from a penalty. Now, but that's it. And again, it's hard to know. Are we not providing the right delivery, the right service for Adam Armstrong? He's a proven goal scorer, 1 in 2 goal scorer at championship level. So are we not delivering the balls to him that he thrives on? Is there something else up with him? Is he lacking confidence? Not clear. But on my podcast this week, we said for the game against Sunderland, realistically, he shouldn't be starting because he hasn't been playing well.
I wonder if he will start, though, because with him being a Newcastle United fan, he's going to be motivated to try and score against Sunderland, isn't he? And I think you bang on. That was one bit of business I saw at the back end of the January window where I thought, oh, bloody hell, West Brom really, really mean business. So it's odd, isn't it, that he's just not been able to find that formula. But you look at the players that West Brom have got. I mean, do you think that you're good enough to get out of this division this season? I think we should be. We should be good enough to make the playoffs. One thing that he has done, and again, this may explain a little bit of the kind of discontent with him, he's put a lot of faith in midfield in John Swift. Swift we got on a free transfer when Steve Bruce took over, so we're going back 3 seasons now. And in that summer, we signed Swift and Wallace from Millwall. Wallace and Swift were regarded as 2 of the best Bosman frees in that summer, and neither of them has truly delivered for us. Now, I can see why Mowbray likes Swift. Wallace is injured, by the way, but he hasn't really performed, even though he's club captain. But Swift is one of those players, and Mowbray loves players with soft feet. You'll be familiar, I'm sure, with that phrase. And he talks about football teams being comprised of artists and warriors, and Swift is definitely one of the artists. But he's proved time and again that although he's a very gifted player, and I don't think he lacks for effort, he just isn't consistent enough to deliver, yet he gets picked every time. And we've got options in midfield. We've got Malumbi, who's very aggressive. We've got Alex Mowat. Isaac Price has come through in the last few weeks. Isaac Price was a player who was on Everton's books. We signed him from Standard Liège in Belgium, and he looks to be a real find. And he was rested at the weekend, having been away on international duty. I'd be amazed if Price doesn't start, but if he sticks with Swift again and we don't deliver, I think there'll definitely be some discontent amongst the crowds. So it's difficult. He's had injuries, but so does every team in the Championship. And he's kind of got a lot of players who've promised more than they've delivered. We've got Tom Fellows, he's a great winger. Everton's supposed to be interested in him, but hasn't really pushed on after a really good start to the season. We got Mikey Johnson on the left wing. He's very good on his day. Like a lot of Championship teams, we've got good players when they perform, but they don't perform consistently. You've already talked about Adam Armstrong there. Another player of note who I want to ask you about, and Johnny's really, really keen to see your facial reaction to this, so the listeners won't see this, but we will. Callum Styles, what's he like?
Well, Callum Styles, I would say on balance, he's loved by supporters. So wow. Styles has been playing left back. There is a caveat coming, by the way, but he's loved by the supporters because ankles roll down, no shin pads, buccaneering, aggressive style from left back. He reminds older listeners, of which I am one, of a great Albion player of the past, Derek Statham. He's similar kind of build, short and stocky. But for me, although he is, you can see why he'd get scouted. He's got a lot going for him as a footballer. And I love his energy and I love his aggression. But for me, his passing can be erratic. Sometimes he'll miscontrol a ball and then lunge in, either at the expense of a booking or at the expense of a free kick in a dangerous situation, which makes him, for me, a little bit of a liability at left back. I'm not sure what his ideal position is, whether he's a left wing back, because he's not kind of a guy who goes past players like a winger does. I could see him playing in an advanced role, a bit of a Gareth Bale type left back, maybe. Why are you interested to know my reaction? What's your thoughts, Johnny? What is it?
Because I know what my facial reaction would be if someone mentioned Callum Styles' name to me, and it wouldn't be as nice as yours.
Oh, really? Why?
Oh, when he was on loan at Sunderland. To be honest, I think I agreed completely when you said I can't work out what his position is. I think that was his biggest problem when he came to us. Came on loan, and we just never seem to see anything even close to the best of him because, as you say, like as a sort of wing-back winger, he's not really going past people. He's not got that much pace in his locker compared to a Romain Mundle for us, for instance. Not really strong enough to hold his own in the middle of midfield, I don't think, which is where he was playing at times. Not necessarily good enough defensively to play as an out-and-out left-back. And that might be the kindest assessment of Callum Styles that I've ever done.
I wouldn't disagree with you, except that, I mean, Albion fans have taken him to their hearts, and I'm a little bit more measured about him. But I think all the things that you say are true. But on the positive side, there is just that energy and aggression and desire about him, and that makes him quite an appealing character. But yeah, he's not the finished product. He's 24, isn't he, I think? And he's been called up for Hungary. He was injured, so he missed their recent games. But yeah, he's got something as a footballer. But yeah, still to really prove it, I think, in a good side. Who should we be afraid of? Who do we need to fear from the mighty Rokerites?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it, Johnny? At the minute, depends who's in form. I'm probably looking more towards the midfield. I thought Chris Rigg and Joe Bellingham played really, really well at the weekend for us. So, and I was interested to listen to you talk about Swift in the middle, because Alex Neil, the Millwall manager, he brings Millwall, and every time we've played against Millwall, and the last time we played against an Alex Neil team, which was Stoke last year, they just totally bullied us in midfield because they put three big uns in there, got in about us, and they did what they did, and they didn't do that on Saturday. So, it all depends on what midfield that West Brom pick for me. Because if you, as it sounds like, Tony Mowbray picks Swift in there, who's maybe not on his best form at the minute, and Chris Rigg and Job and Dan Neil can get in amongst them, it could be quite tasty for us. That's where I think the big battle is.
I think alongside Swift, the chances are that if he does pick Swift, that he'll also pick Jason Malumbi, and Malumbi is a player who likes a physical battle. So I think we won't be lacking for physicality if Malumbi plays, and I expect that he will play. I saw Bellingham play, incidentally, for England under-21s at the Hawthorns recently. I mean, he's some player, isn't he? He's got a good touch.
Yeah, he's outstanding. And I think the big thing we noticed as Sunderland fans when we watched Job and we watched Chris Rigg play with the under-19s for England, is that because they're playing so much men's football and they're actually both seasoned there now, they're very much regulars in our team, that when they're back amongst people their own age, they maybe do stand out a little bit. So it's good to hear that they actually played quite well when you went to watch them at the Hawthorns.
Yeah. Bellingham looks good. Yeah, he's obviously a very good player. Although my daughter was a mascot, my 10-year-old daughter was a mascot for the Albion Sunderland game last season. And I think it was Bellingham who broke her arm because Sunderland won 1-0. So we've got a double reason for wanting revenge this weekend.
On the speaking of fullbacks, on the other side, I think I read Darnell Furlong should be back from a 3-game suspension. Is that a big boost for West Brom? Because I know he's virtually ever present, hasn't he, for a number of years now?
Yeah. And I mean, he was, I thought, unlucky. I mean, stray elbow, probably as a professional footballer, you ought to be a bit more disciplined than that. That's what he got sent off for and why he's missed 3 games. But I really don't think there was anything malicious in it.
Didn't they appeal it? Did they appeal it?
They did, and they lost the appeal, but they didn't get extra punishment. So it wasn't a frivolous appeal. This was against QPR. So they've definitely missed him because we don't really have a proper right-back replacement. In one game, Isaac Price, who I mentioned, has played in that position, who is a very good midfielder, decent right back, but not his natural position. And then at the weekend against Norwich, if you want to watch a moment of comedy, then look at Mason Holgate playing at right back, chasing after Josh Sargent. Honestly, you or I, Gav and Jonny, could do better than Mason Holgate. It was honestly a pathetic sprint. Now, we've watched Holgate. Holgate was with us a few years ago as a young kid. And it's strange, isn't it? He's 28 now. He's never really made it anywhere. He's got a fair number of games under his belt, but Everton clearly don't want him. And he's been filling in at centre-half for us for a few games. Thankfully, we've got Kyle Bartley back now as our regular right-sided centre-half. Clearly not physical enough to be a centre-half, and Mowbray made a comment to that effect recently, saying, when I was centre-half and you want to get the ball, you get there.
Yeah.
He just doesn't impose himself. Right back, he's been less of a liability, but he was a liability at the weekend. So, I mean, you don't want to be calling out players. These guys try and, they do their best, but he's 28. He's earned a living, quite a good living, I imagine, as a professional footballer. But here he is, with a team with aspirations in the Championship. Honestly, doesn't look good enough. So, yeah, Furlong, welcome back, Darnell. He's also got the long throw, the Rory Delap long throw.
Oh, that makes me worry, by the way, because we aren't good with those balls into the box. So that makes me worry.
Yeah, but when you think our big man is Adam Armstrong.
Well, still, I mean, if you stick it right on Anthony Patterson's head, the way that we've been defending the last few weeks, you still got half a chance.
Here's a question for you then. How do we beat West Brom? What would you do if you were the opposition manager lining up against West Brom?
I think Norwich played quite sensibly against us. I think that they sat deep and just sort of let us play in front of them. And I think if I was setting up to beat the Albion, that's what I would do. I would sit deep and just let us play in front of you. Your danger, though, if you do that, is that the wingers, Fellows on the right, if he plays well, is a very good winger. He's been a bit in and out, but it just depends how we try and match that up in the middle, whether we rest Armstrong and give Will Lancashire a try. Lancashire is on loan from Spurs. He's played a few games for Spurs first team. We've had him since January. Hasn't really been given much of an opportunity, but he looks like he relishes a physical battle, and he's quite a bit taller than Armstrong. Mikey Johnston on the left side, we'll either have Mikey Johnston, he tends to cut in on his right foot, or Carlin Grant, who was always willing to have a shot. But we're very much reliant on those wide players having good games. But that's what I'd do if I was Sunderland. I wouldn't overextend myself, and I would try and hit us quick on the break. We do concede goals in that manner. The other thing I'd do is if you can get crosses in on the edge of the 6-yard box, you will completely bewilder our goalkeeper, Wildsmith. So we had Alex Palmer, who has gone to Ipswich, lost him in the January transfer window. Suppose a good deal. We got £5 million, and we need to make money for fear of breaching PSR rules. But Wildsmith, who's 29, very experienced keeper, got promotion from League One with Derby, but doesn't look anywhere near the quality of Palmer. And he's so hesitant on the edge of his 6-yard box. He comes, he goes back, he comes again. So, if you float a ball somewhere between 6 and 8 yards from the goal line, you could have some joy there.
What's your gut feeling then on what the result's going to be, the score at the end of the day?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, I'm still winded and wounded from the weekend, conceding a goal at 90+2. Until that point, I was very optimistic about our chances. I'm less so now. I reserve the right to change this before kick-off. And I hate to say it, but I'm going Sunderland 2-1.
I don't know if an opposition fan's ever...
I'm just hoping to jinx you now.
Well, Adrian, thank you very much for joining us. We'll let you get back to making your tea for your lovely family. Thanks for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it. And good luck beyond Saturday. Thank you. Always love Sunderland. Good luck to you both, and hope to see you sometime soon. Take care, guys. See you later. Maybe in the playoffs. We'll see. Maybe in the playoffs. See you, Adrian. That was Adrian Goldberg of the Liquidator podcast. Now, they forgot the name of his podcast there, and a broadcast journalist. I mean, I think at some point there, he just wanted to interview us, which was great. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, I'll take that. He doesn't sound confident at all, Johnny. No. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. How does that make you feel?
because we're Sunderland, it worries us. Because as soon as somebody else is worried about us, I start thinking that makes us the favourites, which makes me start thinking we're going to lose the game. But that's obviously an old habit we need to try and break out of. At the risk of actually trying to analyse the football match, when he started talking about what would win us the game if he was setting us up, being sitting a bit deeper, letting them play in front of us and hitting them on the break, my mouth almost starts watering there, because I think when we play well, that's exactly what we do. And particularly, with Mundle being fit and basically firing again. I mean, his goal the other week suggests that he's feeling pretty good. And then, you've potentially got Tommy Watson who could be involved. Obviously, Isidore up front, like, his pace is just ridiculous. If that holds true, and as long as we manage to defend reasonably resolutely, I'm feeling pretty confident now based off the back of that. But, like I say, I never want to try and get too confident and cocky, because Sunderland's got a way of clipping your wings pretty sharpish.
Yeah, he did really get me going there when he's talking about the fact, if you were going to beat West Brom, how would you do it? And he was like, well, just sit deep and break. I was like, great. Sounds fantastic. That's exactly what we like to do. Does pose a question, though, because one name you didn't mention there was Eliza Mayenda. And if you think back to, there's been a bit of talk after the game on Saturday from the players and from the manager and the general chit-chat around the game about getting back to the way we used to play, the way we played earlier in the season. If you think back to the start of last season, we were going away from home, and that's what we were doing to teams. We were just sitting off, pressing the hell out of them and breaking. And Eliza Mayenda was the one leading the charge in that team. So, this is going to be a battle that Regis Labris has every single week between now and the end of the season. But what does he do up front? Because I would be very, very tempted to go with Eliza Mayenda for this one. But then you make a great case for Isidore, some of the goals he scored this season on the break where we've just threaded him in behind. I guess the question is, on top of that, is, who's the player who's going to thread him in behind? We haven't got Enzo Lefebvre back at the minute. So it's an interesting conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's almost a win-win for Labris at the minute, because obviously Isidore and Mayenda are both quality. Mundle and Watson are both fit on the left-hand side. Roberts is fit and, playing some decent stuff at the minute on the right. So anyone that he wants to kind of drop in and drop out and, rotate, they're all good options. It's not like a fullback. We've got Alan Brown set out of position in that. I wouldn't even be averse to an almost pre-planned kind of second half sub where maybe we start with Mayenda, because his running, his pressing, he'll be great at getting, into the faces of the West Brom back four and giving them a really torrid kind of first 60 minutes or whatever. And then if you're talking about hitting them on the break, the only thing more devastating than Isidore's pace would be Isidore's pace after an hour or so against tired legs when he's completely fresh. So, if that was the way we were going to approach it, I wouldn't even hate seeing something like that, where it's one of those you kind of think right, unless, something emergency changes, we start Mayenda and we think 60, 70 minutes, Isidore's coming on, and we're going to, shift the front three that way and then try and really, really hurt them in those transitions. But, that's a really long-winded way of sitting on the fence and saying I like all of them. But it's a tough call, because whoever doesn't start is going to be disappointed, because I reckon they'll all fancy this game.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the West Brom form, and lost to Norwich, as we were talking about with Adrian there, lost 1-0 at the weekend, and late. Drew with Hull, drew with Burnley, beat QPR 1-0, drew with Leeds. They're in a bit of a rut, really, when you look at it, but it's not horrendous. It could be a lot worse. And I wonder whether, because, I don't know if you've seen the table, how tight it is for those two places below. So obviously Coventry are in there on 59, West Brom are on 57, and Borough and Bristol City are also on 57. And then realistically, it can go down to Millwall in 13th on 51. There were about 9 teams going for 2 places. And I wonder if that anxiety, which Adrian's clearly got, and which the West Brom fans I've been reading on social media have clearly got, I wonder if that comes as a result of they're not comfortable enough at this stage, and while they're not getting battered every week, they're also not winning convincingly. There's almost a bit of a parallel between us maybe 3-4 weeks ago and them now, except we have that comfort of having so many points and they don't.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You think of our run of form that we went on a few weeks ago, and how, every time we were drawing, you had people starting panicking and going, oh, well, we're not in form, we're not winning games. It's 10 points now, but, and then you lose to Coventry, and then all of a sudden that's like, didn't feel like a 6 pointer going into it, but then, the effect on the table, it's almost like that. If even we're starting to get worried, or, sections of our fans are getting worried, and we've got a 10 plus point gap, the West Brom fans must be feeling that times 100 because of their position. And as well, I think it doesn't help them that, as he said, and I think Adrian said the same, they had some kind of creditable draws interspersed in there. Those results feel good on the day, but when you look at the run of 5 games and it's got 3 draws in, 2 of them might be good draws against good teams, but that doesn't help you put momentum together and put a run together. So, I think that maybe a little bit of a victim of the fixture list in a sense, not able to build up a head of steam, injuries in that as well. So it's so finely poised, isn't it? I mean, going into the final run of the season. So anybody in that group of 9 teams that you've listed is going to be feeling either extremely stressed or very, very hopeful, because the gap's so small that whichever end you're at, you're not out of it, are you?
No. They've drawn 18 games this season, and as I said to Adrian at the start there, they've only lost 2 at home. Borough and Blackburn are the only teams to beat them. So whilst we're talking about all these things, and he's given me an awful lot of confidence there by basically saying they're just not doing very well at the minute, I do have to caveat all of that by the fact that they're clearly a decent home team. I mean, they've lost 2 at home all season. We've lost 1. So that and they've actually got a pretty similar record when it comes to scoring goals and conceding. I mean, we've got a plus 19 goal difference. They've got a plus 13. So, I think this is a good test of where we're at. I think this is when we're trying to think about the potential of what's to come in the playoffs and stuff, that we might even play West Brom. If the table stays as it is, we would potentially face them in the final if they did well enough, but we could potentially face West Brom in the playoffs. I think this is a good test to see where we're at, because this is one of the teams in amongst it that, feasibly could be Premier League next season, even though they're not playing particularly well at the minute. A couple of wins in the playoffs and they're in the Premier League. So, good test of our credentials, I would say.
And a great opportunity to exercise a few demons from the Coventry game as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because obviously that was, a really humbling experience, shipping 3 goals against a team who's only 1 place below you in the league. But to have this so swiftly on the heels of it, with the added benefit of then having, we've played Millwall and we've beat them. So we've, got back to winning ways, to fall into absolute cliche usage. But I think it's a good chance to just kind of mentally put everything right again. The only way that it could be any better is if we get a penalty in the game and somebody steps up and scores it, then we could get all the monkeys off our back in one go. I think we spoke about this maybe a couple of weeks ago, I think, Gav, about how we've got to approach the running now as a mini pre-season almost. And, there's been those kind of noises coming from the club. And this is part of that, isn't it? Any games we've got against teams that are or could feasibly end up in the top 6 come the end of the season, we've got to treat them almost as mini dress rehearsals. And the fact it's away from home as well is good, because that's a different sort of test. We've kind of seen it now, us playing good teams at home. We know what we're about. So to just get another one, notched off the fixture list away from home and hopefully come out with a decent result, I think that should give a lot of belief and a lot of confidence to the lads going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I am confident though about the game. I mean, Harful Henderson here again. I'm obviously predicting a Sunderland win for the weekend. It's just by how many, I think. I've kind of given up on predicting 3 and 4-0s and things like that. It isn't going to happen. I think if we're going to win there, it's probably going to be a 1-0 victory. And given West Brom's record, the recent results, the fact that they only seem to score and concede 1 at a time, I think that's probably the most likely result. I fancy us to win 1-0. I do think we'll win. It just sounds to me like a bit of a styles clash from their perspective, in where they're not in great form and they're playing against the Sunderland side, who actually really love to play against a team who set up that way. And I think ordinarily they're probably facing sides at the Hawthorns lower down the table who will sit in, but they maybe don't have the quality on the break to hurt them, where we definitely do. So I fancy us to win this one. And I fancy Wilson Isidore to get a goal. I think he's maybe, the last few weeks, few games, not really been at his best in front of goal. I think he was a little bit unlucky on Saturday with that header and what have you. But I think Isidore is potentially in a run of a bit of poor form in front of goal. And I think this might be the one where he puts it right. One of those little threaded balls that I suggested we might not have the player to do it. Maybe late in the game, chuck Eliza Mayenda on with him. Mayenda slips him in behind. We win 1-0. That's my prediction. What about you?
Well, I'd take yours. We've certainly seen that exact, ball through from Mayenda for Isidore to go and finish, on a number of occasions this season. So I'd be happy with that. I think we'll win as well, and I also think it'll be a tight game. But the player who I should have mentioned it before, really, but someone I fancy to have a good game is Patrick Roberts, because I think with Callum Styles probably going to start at left back.
Oh,
West
I forgot
Brom.
about that. About that.
I could tell you did. But if Styles is going to be starting at left back, even Adrian there, when he's being slightly more generous than I was about Styles, kind of, alluded to the fact that his best qualities are going forward and not going back the other way. So if you've got somebody like Roberts, if we can get him the ball and isolate him one-on-one against Styles, you'd have to imagine he's going to have the beating of him all afternoon. So I think I'd definitely like to see Roberts start, whatever we do with the team. And I think if we can get him the ball and get him running at Styles and hopefully beating him and putting some telling balls in, I think we'll have some joy. So I'm going to go for 2-1, just because I don't want to hang my hat on keeping a clean sheet with the slightly makeshift back four that we've got at the minute. Yeah. I wouldn't want to put money on that, but I do fancy us to win, because I think we'll have a bit more confidence. They seem a bit, not all at sea, but they're floundering a bit, aren't they? So I'm going to say 2-1. Who do I fancy? I fancy Mayenda to get one, whether he starts or not. Either from the start or from the bench, Mayenda's going to get one. And it's about time Dan Neil got another goal, I reckon. Yeah. Little, arriving late in the box, little cut back. Somebody maybe beats Callum Styles down the line, cuts it back. It's just me abusing Callum Styles for now of this. I'm sorry, Callum, if you're listening, because I'm sure you will be. I don't actually hate you. I just, you're a funny footballer. But yeah, no, I fancy Neil to get one, because I think, he's shown this season, hasn't he? He's got a little bit of a knack for it at times, getting a goal. So yeah, I'm going to say Mayenda and Neil, 2-1 the lads. And we're going to be looking back at that Coventry game and wondering why the hell we were all so bothered.
Yes, exactly. Well, we will see. We've got a bunch of podcasts coming up over the weekend in response to the game. We'll have a reaction pod straight after the game, and then on Sunday we'll be joined by Phil Smith of the Sunderland Network. So make sure you keep an eye out for those on the feeds. There's also loads to catch up on. Jesus, we're a month into this, and there's 25 podcasts on the feed. So bunch of really interesting stuff on there that I'm sure you'll all enjoy, not just match stuff, but interviews and really interesting people such as Malcolm Crosby and Kieran Brady, Kieran Maguire, Ian Murta, Bailey Wright. The list is endless. So make sure you catch up on all the podcasts which we've got on the feed if you're looking for stuff to listen to. Cheers, Johnny. Thanks, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, Gav. Pleasure as always.
Thanks to Adrian, who's no longer here with us, but thank you very much. I don't mean he's died, by the way. He's there. He's just not on the podcast.
He's enjoying his tea.
Yeah, he had to go and flip the sausages in the air fryer, as he told us before we started. So thank you very much, Adrian, for joining us. We might even be chatting to him again around the playoffs. You never know. Thanks to the listeners, as always. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you on the next one. We'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.